Hey, and welcome to the channel. Come along for a scenic drive to the Grand Canyon in a remote section that a lot of people don't know about or that it is publicly accessible. Now, the two most common sections that people visit the Grand Canyon is either going to be the South Rim, where you'll see like the glass walkout, which is pretty cool to do, or North Rim, which again has cool viewpoints and hikes, but both of those you could drive a Prius right up into a parking lot, walk out, see the views. That's the two most common vacation spots that people do. Now, if you're in that section of the Grand Canyon, you want to get a little adventurous off-roading. There's two different ways that I know you can do that in that section. One is going to be doing off of Route 66. It's going to be Peach Springs, Arizona, and you're going to do Diamond Creek Road. Now, this area is owned by Pay, and you pay a fee to go in, but you can go into the Colorado to the river, see inside the Grand Canyon. That's a cool way to see. And then the other one is North Rim Grand Canyon. There's some remote trails that you can take and get right up to the Grand Canyon as well. I've done that trip, and is a good one to do. If you're interested in that, Fun Tracks has one of those ways that you can do those trails. I've done that a couple times. Debating might put a video together on that and give you some kind of little note before you goes. Some of the roading and the mapping and stuff gets a little confusing to get to the starting point of where you need to go. Now, we're not riding any of those main sections. If you're looking at a map of Arizona, the section that we're going to be riding today and showing is going to be off to the left-hand side. You have Grand Canyon National Park, and that's what most people think of. And then you also have Grand Canyon-Parashant. And if you're looking for that on the map, it is south of St. George, Utah, going down into Arizona. And that's how we're starting this trip and riding today. Now, some people will mess up in this section, and they'll Google Grand Canyon, and they'll find this spot. But this is not the trail that you want to be driving your Prius up to. If you're trying to do the tourist easy thing in an average rental car, that's where you need to go, north or south rim Grand Canyon with the parking lots and stuff. This is gravel roads, nothing too crazy to get to a couple spots down through here. But if it was raining or something like that, these roads could turn slick and get mucked up pretty quick, and definitely not the average passenger car. This is not the trip for you. And I'll go into a little bit more about what you need or what to keep in mind as you're doing this, but not your passenger car trip. All right, so I'm going to do a detailed video on the mapping, but if you're in St. George, it goes River Road, Southern. That's going to come down to 1069, and you can run that straight down, and eventually we wind up at the schoolhouse and then go down to Whitmore Canyon Overlook. And we also rode around over here some, seen Paws Pocket. We'll show that. Now, the way that we came in up top, and this is where I'd recommend more for ATVs or UTVs. Dropped off here. Now, coming down through here, we cut across the mountains. There's a bunch of trails that's not on just your average mapping system, but I had some on my electronic stuff and then came down. But I would, if you do decide to cut through this type stuff, that's where I'd recommend ATVs or UTVs. Now, the map snippet I just showed, I'm going to do a full video and show the different waypoints you may want to hit, slow that down a little bit, show some distances, stuff like that. So if you're watching this video and you want a little bit more in-depth to kind of figure out what you're getting into, waypoints you may want to Google, search, stuff like that. I always like doing tabs on my videos so you can find the information that's most pertained to you. So I'm going to leave that part at the end of the video, and it will be tab, but that's going to go into a little bit more details as far as your miles, waypoints, stuff like that. Now, the paper map that I'm showing at the end of the video, that was my favorite map. I downloaded just about every map I could find in the area, had stuff electronic. This one we picked up at the schoolhouse. I'm going to include different links for different MPS websites if you're planning this trip, some good read-throughs before you decide to do it. Now, the map that was my favorite, you should also be able to pick up at the Public Lands Visiting Center, and I'll include their address as well. I downloaded just about every single map that I could find and play with electronics. This one was my favorite. I'll include a link to where I feel like there should be a brochure that you could download that would be this one. The link's currently not working. Hopefully it does in the future. And I'm going to slow down that video because, again, this was my favorite map that I found for this area. And it's a paper map that has, if you did just the main, easier, accessible trails, you could almost use it as a good source for navigation. Now, with mapping, you could actually use Google Maps to get to the main point it actually shows up just fine. Now, if you decide to do that, you're definitely going to want to download those in advance. And the two apps that I liked here was Onyx and Lifetime. If you've had this section pre-downloaded, they both can help you out, especially if you're trying to figure out ATV, UTV trails, that sort of thing. A lot of these are numbered roads or trails that can be found. Now, if you do decide to do like Google or Paper Map, at least download something that can offline track you. That way, if you get out there and you get confused, you at least know how to get back to the way you came. This area is very remote. Our total miles for the day was close to around 180. So depending on what you're driving, your range, this is one of those scenarios like typically we suggest airing down. We should have probably aired up. We were very low on PSI and I think it hurt our MPG on this trip, but we did bring extra gas and have to fill up. We wouldn't have had enough gas to do this full loop without bringing extra. And again, this area is very remote. You have the potential to not run across other people depending on what section you're doing. You do need a decent clearance four-wheel drive with all-terrain tires is the suggestion. Now, if you run across any gates, you can go through them, but always leave the gate the way you found it. So if it's closed, open it up, drive through, and then close it back. If you come across it and it's already open, leave it open. That's the general rule of thumb. At the end of the trail, we did run across a Subaru that had made it to the bottom. And if you didn't do the trails like we did here and you rode the easier gravel section on a dry day, you might could do this with an all-wheel drive vehicle. Conditions really vary. Now, the office has a number that you can call. So if you're not sure about current road condition, call. Some of these areas that we did, one section was extremely dusty. If it had just rained, that whole area would have been a nightmare to try to get through in slick conditions. If you're not sure, call and ask. If you get out here and you end up having to call for a tow vehicle, that bill can be $1,000 or over $2,000 to get out depending on where you're at. And you're going to be very remote. There's no cell phone signal for any of the carriers down in the bottom. So when you get down in there, if you do have a breakdown or you get stuck or hung up, it could be a very long time before you're going to be found. So I do recommend some type of satellite communication or SOS device. I personally always carry a Garmin with me anytime on these trips. You never know when somebody might have a medical emergency or need something. That's the quickest way to get communication in a no cell phone signal area. I'm also going to include in the description a link for the road descriptions and difficulty ratings, just because the Subaru made it to that point. Some of these other lookout points or things to see, they do have difficulty differences there. So just because you could do one trail in a vehicle doesn't mean you might not need a considerably more capable vehicle to make it some of the other spots in this area. Some other items to consider or bring along with you is maybe some type of shovel to dig out a section or traction board of some type, a jack to be able to lift the vehicle, and a spare tire. I actually borrowed somebody's spare tire just to have for this remote section. It's a good idea to have a adequate tire, some type of all-terrain tire. If you're in a heavier vehicle, a heavier duty ply tire will do better out here, less likely to get punctured. Bring extra water, food, like any medication that you might need. Bring extra just in case you get out here and you get stuck or hung up. It can turn into life or death by not having some basic supplies while you're waiting for someone to come along. Also clothing, bring extra, and look at the weather, be sensible about it. Do you need to bring clothes for weather that may potentially get hotter or colder, or maybe a mixture of both? Depending on what trails or points you're trying to hit, you will potentially change elevation a decent amount, and as you go up and down elevation, that has the potential also for hot or cold. So don't just look at like St. George's weather and think, hey, that's got me covered at that elevation. It will vary in this area based off elevation as well. Now this section is that really dusty section. Like when we started going through it, it got to be so dusty it was actually like coming up in the cab and it almost looked like smoke or something. Now this is a section that the conditions would change a lot. If it was dry like it was today, it's a very dusty two-wheel drive trail. Now if it had rained, this trail would be a whole different ball game trying to make it through the same section.
That was dusty as shit. Like I stopped thinking like the damn shit was smoking. It's like all of a sudden I start seeing shit come up in the cab. I'm like, what the hell? That was bad.
Now if you are going to do this trail in an ATV or UTV, which is a blast to do, the two permits that you may need to consider depending on where you start out, one is going to be Utah's OHV permit. They have an education course, and Arizona's OHV permit as well. That also has a education course, and I have a video on that. I'll include the link in the description for that one. Now, if you did trailer your side-by-side and you go far enough to where you're in Arizona unloading, that would skip the Utah permit if you didn't want to purchase that one or didn't have plans to ride elsewhere in Utah. And we ran across multiple side-by-sides or UTVs, and I could tell when I was going down the road, there were some spots like near the schoolhouse where people would trailer the machines down to there, unload, and then go out further exploring from UTVs. If you do that, that's going to decrease the amount of mileage round trip that you'd have to do, or depending on what routes you want to take. But again, look at the map. I'll go over kind of slowly in the last part of the video, but plan your miles out so you have enough gas, and also plan your trip out to the point that you can give somebody a trip plan. Hey, I'm planning on leaving at this time, this location. I'm gonna go to this point, this point, this point on these roads, and hopefully be back by such and such time. And then if they don't, you have somebody says, hey, they were planning on being back by 6 p.m. It's now 10 o'clock. They can send help or start looking for you. Now, if you do get hung up somewhere or your machine breaks, don't just go walking off. If they do search for you, they can find a vehicle or a side-by-side a lot easier in the air than they can you walking along. So if you are recovered or found, they want to find you with the vehicle, not you walked off and or lost on foot, and that much harder to find. Stay with the vehicle if that happens. And it may not always be possible. I've done some trips solo just because, hey, I had the window of opportunity or time. But if you do have the opportunity to go with an extra person or two or a small group, that would be ideal as well. If you get hung up, you've got another vehicle there to help you out or make a recovery. If you have an accident, hopefully somebody's there to help. Or like say if we was coming back and my Kawasaki broke, at least Desert could finish driving, go to town, get parts, maybe tow me back. There's options, and there's somebody else with you to help out in that type of scenario. If you don't have nobody that can do a trip with you, maybe check on some of the Facebook groups like the Sand Hollow pages. See if maybe you can bump across somebody online or at a trailhead to maybe tag along with, just that safety in numbers type thing. Now up ahead we get back into that smooth gravel section, run a pretty good pace, not really much to show as far as the video goes, but next stop is going to be the Mount Trumbull Schoolhouse, and it's a pretty cool little stop. We had lunch here, refilled the machines up. Definitely a little cool stopping point, or it's a good reference point if you was going to do like a trailer out, try to get out in this area and then explore more on side-by-sides on the rougher stuff or ATVs. But definitely a cool one. Take nothing but pictures, but definitely a cool little stopping point. Now, if you look in the backdrop off to the right, that's a pretty easy navigation sign. It's got arrows pointing what directions and miles. Most of the main roads back in here do have some type of signage that makes it easier to navigate. Now, leaving out of this section, if you look at kind of the road, this is the average road. If you take that main track I showed you in, you'll see people pulling trailers, towing side-by-sides, horses, cattle, that sort of thing. So fairly accessible. Again, weather and conditions can always change, so definitely do your due diligence there. Now do keep in mind as you're driving down through here, a lot of these spots, if it's this time of year, can be fairly popular to run across other people or people pulling trailers as well. So again, watch out for blind corners, stuff like that. Now with the ATVs or dirt bikes or ATVs, a lot of times people will throw hand signals out. So if it's a group of X number, they'll throw 5 hand signals out to let you know there's 5 or more people, then 4, 3, 2, 1. So if you see fingers, that's giving a count of how many people is behind. If you see a closed fist, that means there's nobody else behind said person, and you're not expecting to see another person, which again, it could be another group coming up behind that. So always be on the lookout, be smart coming through the spots, because we did run across a decent amount of traffic heading out to this point. Now the road stays fairly smooth out till the point that you get close there, and I'm going to keep showing clips there. But when we get closer to the Subaru, that's kind of the little bit rougher spot as far as making it through some stuff. This is all fairly smooth up to that point. Now, if you are planning on doing this trip, plan a full day as a minimum. We got started fairly early in the morning. We ran through some more difficult sections than the easy straight shot, but we started early in the morning, got back to the truck at dark, so it was a full day. And if you do the main section, it will be a easier, quicker pace, but you're still running around 160 miles for that, depending on exactly where you stop. Now, I do think it would have been a cool trip to do a little bit of overlanding back in here. And coming up, there is a airfield that's off to the left there, if you're curious about what that is. Now, I do think it would be pretty unique to come back in here, ride a full day, make it to a point or two, and do some overlanding, and then the next day work out farther. Fortunately, this trip didn't kind of have that time to really plan or do that type of style trip. We had a free day here and wanted to go do this ride. Now, if you are wondering, you can backcountry camp out here. Now, there is no official campgrounds per se. I'm going to include a link to the NPS website for that as well. So read through their guidelines and suggestions for that before you take off for a camping adventure. Of course, this has got specific rules about what you can and can't do, and we're trying to, keep the environment preserved. Now, I do feel like if you want to really go and see all the viewpoints, this would be kind of how you should do it, is plan a few day trip to, camp and explore all the different areas in there. One day, there's no way that you can cover enough of the terrain to cover all the viewpoints. We did a down and back, seen a couple spots, but if I had the time, I would like to have planned maybe 3 days and really explored all the different areas that this place has to offer. Now, the map that I'm going to show at the end, again, that's a lot of general roads, the main section, main viewpoints. According to the map, there's over 6,000 miles of unpaved road exists, some only suitable for all-terrain vehicles. Now, if you want to see more details, you're going to use the BLM Arizona Strip Visitors Map. It's going to show some more details. But if you are an adventurous or exploring this area, again, the more maps, the better. But do keep in mind, if you're in your Jeep Wrangler and you start going down a trail, and all of a sudden it starts getting very narrow, maybe get out, walk it, or turn around. If you're not sure, don't get yourself down in a valley or point that you can no longer get back out of or turn around. If you're not sure, walk it or turn around and use the more accessible sections of the roading out here. You also have the potential to run across private property like cabins, residences, or livestock. All private property, make sure to be respectful. Also, there is potential for run crossing prehistoric sites, such as petroglyphs. Again, take pictures, enjoy what's out there, but leave it undisturbed. Take nothing but pictures. Remember, as you go back in here, everything is remote, so there's no facilities whatsoever when you get back in here. So anything that you're going to pack in, remember to pack back out. Bring some trash bags if you're in a side-by-side. I personally like the little sack bags where you keep all your trash there. Also, there is no restroom facilities. So if you do have to use the bathroom, again, remember me mentioning the little shovel. That can be a dual purpose there. If you do need to use the bathroom, you're going to dig a small hole 6 to 8 inches deep, bury everything. Also, at least go 200 feet away from any water source as well. Now, this section is getting into the drop-off where it's kind of a steady drop-off, but it's consistently going downhill. And this is where we're going to come out at Whitmore Canyon Overlook. There is also a trail that you can hike. It's a down and back trail. It's 1.6 miles. It seemed like an interesting trail to do. We were kind of a little bit limited on time because, of course, we had to make it back at a decent time as well. And part of the reason I do these videos is to get this information out for people who's wanting to do certain trips and trails, and I always leave my comments on. So if you have done this area before and you have a favorite app or map for navigation, drop it in the comments. Same thing if you've been out to a cool viewpoints on some of these trails, or you have like a historic or a favorite spot to stop and see. Again, sound off in the comments because it could help somebody else plan a trip or figure out what they want to see or don't want to see. Now up ahead, you're going to see the little Subaru I'm talking about. It's not that crazy of a vehicle, fairly stockish, but he made it all the way to the trail point doing the main section of the road there. Now, this is the awesome viewpoint. Definitely stop and enjoy this spot. Now this is Pa's Pocket. It didn't take far off the main trail to get back to this point. A couple little spot or two, nothing too awful crazy. We did ride back in there farther and got into some more technical riding back over in that section. Now if you do want to see the mapping, it's going to be at the end of the video again. I'm going to break down some miles and kind of give you a little bit more information if you're debating doing this trip. If you're just watching for the video, this is it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until the next adventure, hope you have a good one. Alright, so I'm going to pan this map a few different ways, so if you are trying to use this as a reference. And again, these are the bigger tracks and terrains. There's a lot of stuff that can cross through depending on what maps you are using. You may want to be detailed, but I really like this map as a very easy to go by and kind of get a plan of where you're going to go, put your miles together. Now that Public Lands Information Center, somewhere you should be able to get this map. We got it at the schoolhouse. So if I was coming in, I'd probably make that my stopping point, grab one of these. And if anybody knows a PDF of this, I would like to add it in the description. I could not find one, but out of the maps I've had, this was my favorite one, especially being paper. Now you see easy little points of interest and where you see like a little black. I'll go over the whole map, so if you either want to read through some of this information or figure out what's out here. Now as you're coming down from St. George, if you're doing a straight shot to where we went and wanting to do a little bit easier route, that's going to be at 1069. And the thing I like about this map is it has miles, so you get that 18.6. And what you'll go through is you hit each segment, you just keep adding these together. You always want to overestimate. And when you do your MPG, guess a little bit under when you're doing your math for how much gas you're going to need. And there goes that Mount Trumbull Schoolhouse. Now we came in the other way, but kind of keep just going through it. I'm going to scan this a couple times, so if you're trying to figure out how something connects together, this should be a good way. And just because you see this as a main trail, again, there might be ATV trails or other trails cutting in between some of these that the other mapping would help you out if you're trying to get through some of those other spots here. There's a Pa's Pocket that we showed, and then Whitmore Canyon Overlook. But again, if you're going to go to this spot that we showed and you shoot from St. George and back, that's roughly 160 miles right there. So I'd plan a little bit more, especially if you take a side trip or anything. Now, if you want to come in the way we came, you'll drop in on 5 there. Now in here, the way I show the video, we cut down out through here on some more ATV trails that's not shown for the main part. We also did a loop, so we came back through a little bit different than we went out on the video. And that notation right there is correct. Rain impassable after rain due to deep mud, and that stuff was just powder. So I know if we got a decent amount of rain, that would have been a sloppy miss to make it through at best. And that note that I've noted before, over 6,000 miles of unapproved terrain. But again, whether you came in directly from St. George or like we came in here, it's going to both kind of drop you back in there. Again, every time you see one of the black ones, it's some type of site or something to see or an overlook. Wish we could have seen more stuff or spent days out here. Now, if you go over a little bit, there goes Pipe Springs National Monument. This is a way you can drop into the Grand Canyon. Now this is a long run, going down 109. That first part's 39.3. Now that will put you at the Toquerville Overlook. And that's going to be in Grand Canyon National Park. Again, everything I went over is for this section, not Grand Canyon National Park, so do your own research there. Last time I checked into it, like with fun tracks and stuff like that, they don't list this as an ATV, UTV trail. Jeeps, side-by-sides, trucks, dual sports, so you have to be, which Arizona can be street legal, so again, stuff's always subject to change, but last time I checked on that, this was a no-go for ATVs or UTVs. But it's just something to kind of keep in mind or maybe be aware of depending on what you're trying to do there. And again, if you wasn't here, just a loop back would take you to Whitmore. Now I'm going to go back up here to St. George again. And you can cut down on 15. And at multiple points, you can pick back up into the trails here, all the way down to Mesquite. And you should be adding these up anywhere you're wanting to go. Again, add your miles, add your loops. Like Tassa Ranch, Coon Springs. Again, to do the main trail, some of these you might have to backtrack and go a ways around. And some of these cut throughs will have some trails that cut through, but they may be ATV, they may be more challenging, may not be something you're wanting to go to. And the same thing as you're going through and you're saying, hey, I'm going to do 103, like this is a note, closed to vehicles in winter. So again, if you're in wintertime, this is a no-go. Elevations change too. So if you go and you figure out your route you want to do, go to the link with the difficulty and make sure it's matching what you feel comfortable as far as tackling out there. And you can always call. So if it's a weather condition thing or being more up to date, always call the number that I had listed. And like, you know, from here to Whitmore, that doesn't look like much, but because again, you're just staring at it on the map, but 31.5, 8, 8, 15, 10, 10, so that's, think about it, just doing rough math, you know, if you do that loop right there, that's, you know, 80 miles just to go from one point to another roughly there. And that's, again, if you go cutting through other trails or going out of the way, like this area is vast. So if you're getting down in here, you might be 60, 80 miles away, you know, in a lot of these sections before you're back on touching blacktop. So definitely heed some of the warnings as far as what to pack and what to bring, because you are remote and that you do not have any cell phone signal down in this section. Now there's one section on the map it's showing coming from Dolan Springs that you can go up and you can hit Lake Mead and then an overlook here. But again, remember at Colorado River, that's what carved the Grand Canyon. So once you get down there, there's no crossing over. So just keep that in mind. All of these points when you go out, that's the end. Once you hit the Grand Canyon, you're not crossing the Grand Canyon to get back to another section. So if you're here and you're trying to make it here, that's going to be quite the loop that you need to do proper planning for. And we'll pan this map one more time. Any point you need to, just pause it. And remember, there is smaller trails all over this. These are just the bigger ones. And the other ride I have done, it's not on this map, but if you go back farther, you can cut down and do an ATV, UTV ride. That's the other one I'm debating. Maybe putting together a little video and some information on. That was a pretty cool ride. I've done that one twice. And if you want to read through any information, just hit the pause. And we went through some of this on the video as far as information goes, phone numbers. Alright, these are some of your points of interest that since something jumps out as being cool to see, help you plan out where you want to go or don't want to go based off of time and miles. Of course, Whitmore, that's what we showed. I always like finding petroglyphs. That was another one I was hoping to have enough time. I'm going to flip over the back side of the map if anybody wants to read through. Oh, and as far as I can tell, where was it at? That should be, I guess, the source of information of what this is. So if anybody has an updated or PDF, again, please drop a comment. I'll throw it in the description. This is one I kind of wish I would have had like an Avenza or a PDF. I just couldn't find it. I feel like it's out there, but maybe I can't find it, or the one link that I feel like should have brought this up in some type of PDF format didn't work or bring anything up whatsoever. So, I'll put that link in the description. Hopefully, if it's just a technical thing or a temporary thing, in the future that will work. And then, if you want to read through any of this, just hit pause. And there are some other maps I found on like Avenza and stuff that will help, but this one, surprisingly, I just stumbled across it in the schoolhouse, and I was like, oh man, this is my favorite now. For a good overview map. Some of my other maps, I like the additional details I have, some of them smaller cut-through trails and stuff like that, but as far as just to fold it out and take a look and figure out some cool points of interest and learn a few little things, I think this one does a pretty good job. And then it's got a little history information over the time frames. But if you have any questions, feel free to answer. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. Greatly appreciate it. And until the next one, hope y'all have a good one.